A wealthy man disappears without a trace. His lavish mansion, once buzzing with activity, falls eerily silent. Neighbors whisper rumors of strange visitors and late-night arguments. A trusted bodyguard suddenly becomes the prime suspect, but no one could have predicted the horror hidden beneath the surface. Who was this millionaire CEO, and what secrets did his life conceal? What darkness could lead a loyal protector to commit an unthinkable crime? As the investigation unfolds, shocking revelations emerge that shake a powerful family to its core. Have you ever wondered how the lives of the ultra-rich can be shattered by betrayal and hidden violence? What lengths people might go to when greed, jealousy, and desperation collide? Today's story exposes the terrifying truth behind a crime that stunned an entire city. A story of ambition, deception, and a deadly secret kept too long. Do you know someone who's trusted the wrong person in their life? Or ever sensed that someone close to you hides something dangerous? Stick with me until the end, because this case reveals lessons about trust, power, and the devastating consequences of unchecked rage. Before we dive deeper, please hit that like button if you're fascinated by stories that reveal the hidden side of wealth and crime. Subscribe and ring the bell to join the Crazy Story File family, where every story uncovers secrets you won't forget. Now, let's step into the shadow of a glittering empire, one where success masked betrayal and a bodyguard's dark secret came to light in the most horrifying way. Nicholas Vance was the kind of man people admired from afar, a self-made billionaire who seemed to have it all. Born into modest circumstances in a small town, Nicholas's journey to the top was marked by relentless ambition and an uncanny ability to seize opportunities others overlooked. As a boy, he was fiercely determined, often telling himself that nothing would stand in the way of his dreams. Nicholas's rise began in the cutthroat world of finance. After graduating from a prestigious university, he launched his first startup, a technology firm that quickly attracted major investors. His knack for bold decisions and calculated risks paid off. Over the years, Nicholas expanded his empire, venturing into real estate, luxury hospitality, and international trade. Each new venture pushed him higher on the global list of the ultra-wealthy. To the public, Nicholas was a picture of success, sharp-suited, polished, and always in control. Magazines featured him on their covers, praising his business acumen and philanthropic efforts. Yet, beneath the surface, those closest to him noticed a different side, one marked by mounting pressure and isolation. Within his inner circle, Nicholas was known as a perfectionist. His expectations were high, sometimes unbearably so. Employees described him as demanding, expecting results without excuses. His personal relationships suffered as he poured energy into his work, leaving little time or patience for friends and family. Despite his wealth, loneliness crept in. His marriage to Vanessa, a former art curator, was one that many envied. The couple met at a charity gala and quickly became a power pair in high society circles. Vanessa was elegant, intelligent, and fiercely protective of her family. However, rumors whispered behind closed doors, whispers of tension, long silences, and unspoken grievances. Neighbors often heard heated arguments echoing through the mansion walls, but no one dared intervene. The Vance family's lavish estate stood as a fortress of secrets. Some speculated that Vanessa's refined demeanor masked deep frustration, while others believed Nicholas's relentless drive had created a growing chasm between them. Their two children, Ava and Leo, lived somewhat sheltered lives, surrounded by luxury but shielded from the more troubling dynamics at home. School friends recalled Ava as bright but distant, while Leo's once cheerful nature had dimmed over the years. In recent months, cracks in Nicholas's empire began to show. Competitors were circling, and a series of risky deals threatened to unravel his carefully constructed kingdom. Business insiders noted increased anxiety during board meetings, where Nicholas's usual confidence gave way to terse exchanges and restless pacing. Adding to the strain was a growing number of threats from unknown sources, anonymous letters, mysterious phone calls, and unsettling messages left at his offices. His security detail had been tightened, and the bodyguard assigned to him, Mark Ellis, was rumored to be unusually close, almost shadow-like in his loyalty. Mark was a former military man, disciplined and stoic, handpicked by Nicholas himself for protection. On the surface, their relationship seemed professional, but some believed Mark had access to more than just physical security, perhaps knowledge of personal affairs best kept hidden. In the days before Nicholas vanished, a series of strange events unfolded. A late-night argument was overheard by neighbors, a black SUV was spotted near the mansion at odd hours, and trusted employees began disappearing quietly. Nicholas himself appeared distracted, often lost in thought during meetings and visibly fatigued. The last confirmed sighting of Nicholas was at a gala in the city's financial district, where he appeared tense but composed. He spoke briefly to a few associates but excused himself early, leaving many puzzled. After that night the trail went cold. Questions multiplied rapidly. Was his disappearance voluntary? Was he a victim of foul play? And who, if anyone, stood to gain from his sudden absence? As the investigation took shape, it became clear that Nicholas Vance's life was far more complicated than it seemed. Beneath the wealth and power lay a network of secrets and rivalries that threatened to explode, and at the center of it all was a bodyguard who knew more than anyone expected. Mark Ellis was the kind of man who never drew attention to himself, yet his presence was impossible to ignore. Tall, broad-shouldered, and with eyes that seemed to miss nothing, he was the silent guardian in the shadows of Nicholas Vance's life. Unlike the flashy lifestyle of his employer, Mark's world was one of discipline, vigilance, and unwavering loyalty. Before becoming Nicholas's personal bodyguard, Mark had served in an elite military unit. His record was impeccable, with years spent in high-risk environments where precision and calm under pressure were essential. Yet, there was something unusual about his transition from soldier to security professional, a detail that few knew and even fewer questioned. Mark had been assigned to Nicholas during a period when threats against the billionaire's life were escalating. Anonymous warnings, suspicious activity around his properties, and even a break-in at one of his offices had set off alarms. Nicholas personally selected Mark, impressed by the man's reputation for professionalism and discretion. For months, Mark was a constant presence, always nearby but rarely seen in the spotlight. His days began early, filled with security briefings, monitoring surveillance feeds, and coordinating with other members of the protection team. Nights were no different. Mark was alert, ready to respond at a moment's notice. Despite his stoic exterior, Mark kept a close eye on Nicholas's mood and behavior. He noticed the mounting stress, the way Nicholas's eyes darted nervously in meetings, and the restless pacing that had replaced his usual calm confidence. On several occasions Mark offered quiet advice, urging Nicholas to take a step back and breathe. These moments of concern were rare glimpses into the man behind the armor. Yet, beneath the professional loyalty lay a deeper connection. Mark wasn't just an employee, he was a confidant. Trusted with sensitive information, he was often the first to learn of Nicholas's fears and suspicions. Their conversations, though sparse, revealed hints of troubles far beyond business rivalries. Rumors swirled among staff and outsiders alike. Some whispered that Mark knew more about Nicholas's personal life than anyone else. Others speculated that the bodyguard might have his own agenda, a theory that gained traction when unexplained events began to unfold. In the weeks leading up to the shocking discovery of Nicholas's remains, Mark's behavior grew increasingly erratic. Colleagues noticed he was more withdrawn, often lost in thought during briefings. A few reported catching him making late-night phone calls, his voice low and urgent. Yet, when questioned, Mark brushed off concerns with vague answers. What troubled investigators most was the discovery that Mark had recently taken out a significant loan, an odd move for someone in his position. The source of the funds and the purpose of the loan remained a mystery. Adding to the intrigue was Mark's sudden absence on the night Nicholas disappeared. Security logs showed he had left the mansion shortly before the estimated time of the CEO's last known movement. Despite repeated attempts, Mark was unreachable for hours, a gap that fueled speculation and suspicion. When Nicholas's dismembered remains were found days later in the trunk of a car belonging to Mark's family, the world was left in shock. How could a man so trusted, so close to the victim, be connected to such a gruesome crime? The investigation that followed revealed layers of deception, hidden motives, and a twisted web of loyalty and betrayal. Mark's past was scrutinized, uncovering a series of troubling incidents and unexplained absences during his military service. Interviews with former colleagues painted a picture of a man who was fiercely protective but also prone to secrecy. As detectives dug deeper, they uncovered financial records linking Mark to offshore accounts, and communication logs revealed encrypted messages exchanged with unknown parties. The question loomed large: was Mark acting alone, or was he part of a larger conspiracy? Family members and friends struggled to reconcile the man they knew with the bodyguard at the center of a brutal murder case. Mark's wife, Elena, expressed disbelief, insisting that her husband was incapable of such violence. Yet, cracks appeared in their story, secrets that suggested Mark's involvement might run deeper than anyone imagined. Throughout the investigation, Mark maintained his silence, invoking his right to remain quiet. His refusal to cooperate only intensified public fascination and media frenzy, turning the case into a spectacle. Behind the headlines, the truth remained elusive. What dark secrets was Mark hiding? What pushed a loyal protector to become the prime suspect in a millionaire CEO's murder? The answers lay buried beneath layers of trust and deception, waiting to surface in a story far more complex than anyone anticipated. Mark Ellis's past was a maze of contradictions and half-told stories. The image most knew, a disciplined, reliable bodyguard, masked a history that raised as many questions as answers. To understand how he came to be involved in Nicholas Vance's tragic end, it was crucial to peel back the layers of his earlier life. Born in a small town miles away from the bustling city where Nicholas built his empire, Mark's childhood was far from privileged. His parents, hardworking but struggling, instilled in him the values of resilience and self-reliance. Mark was a quiet boy, the kind who watched and listened rather than spoke. School records described him as reserved, with few close friends but a sharp mind that rarely went unnoticed. As a teenager, Mark's life took a sudden turn when he joined a local youth military program. It was there he discovered a talent for discipline and strategy. His instructors saw potential in him, encouraging a path that led to enlistment in an elite military unit after graduation. This step marked the beginning of a world far removed from his humble beginnings, a world where loyalty was tested, and survival demanded more than courage. In the military, Mark thrived. His record was impressive, filled with commendations for bravery and tactical skill. Yet, beneath the surface, there were hints of struggles few ever witnessed. Fellow soldiers recalled moments when Mark would withdraw without explanation, his expression darkening for reasons unknown. He rarely spoke of his personal life and when pressed, deflected with vague answers. More troubling were the gaps in his service record, periods when Mark was absent without official leave. These absences, though brief, triggered investigations that never led to formal charges. The explanations given were inconsistent, ranging from medical leave to undisclosed personal issues. After his military service, Mark's transition to the private security sector seemed natural. His skills were in high demand, and the allure of a more stable life appealed to him. But even in this new role, whispers followed him. Some colleagues hinted at a temper that could flare without warning, while others spoke of mysterious trips and unexplained meetings. Mark's move to work for Nicholas Vance was seen by many as a fresh start. The CEO's high profile and the increasing threats he faced meant Mark's position was both prestigious and perilous. At first, everything seemed to fall into place. Mark was the consummate professional, earning Nicholas's trust and respect. Yet, cracks began to show beneath the surface. Mark's financial situation, which had seemed stable, took an unexpected turn. The significant loan he took out raised eyebrows, especially when paired with unusual bank activity. Investigators found transactions that suggested secret dealings, transfers to accounts in foreign countries and payments to untraceable entities. Interviews with those close to Mark painted a complicated picture. Elena, his wife, described him as a man devoted to family but guarded about his past. There were things he never talked about, she admitted, but I never imagined he could be involved in something so terrible. A former military colleague offered a more cryptic insight. Mark's loyalty was his greatest strength, and his biggest weakness. He kept secrets, some of which I think even he didn't fully understand. As the investigation unfolded, more pieces of Mark's hidden past came to light. Reports revealed connections to individuals involved in illegal activities, shadowy figures whose motives were unclear. Surveillance footage showed meetings with unknown contacts, always discreet, always brief. The more detectives dug, the clearer it became that Mark's world was entangled in webs far beyond his role as a bodyguard. Was he protecting Nicholas from external threats, or was he hiding from his own demons? Questions lingered about his mental state during the weeks before the murder. Friends and co-workers noticed a change, a growing tension, signs of fear, and moments of paranoia. Mark's late-night phone calls, once dismissed as routine, now seemed ominous. Was Mark simply a man caught in a dangerous game, or was he a player orchestrating moves behind the scenes? The truth remained elusive, but one thing was certain. Mark Ellis was not the straightforward protector he appeared to be. His past was a puzzle, and each new discovery only deepened the mystery surrounding the millionaire CEO's brutal death. The evening of March 12 began like any other in Nicholas Vance's sleek penthouse overlooking the city skyline. Guests mingled in the softly lit living room, the atmosphere laced with quiet tension beneath the surface of polite conversation. Nicholas, usually the center of attention, was unusually withdrawn that night. His mind was elsewhere, haunted by recent threats and whispers of betrayal within his own circle. Mark Ellis was on high alert. Every detail of the event, from the guest list to the security arrangements, had been meticulously reviewed. But no one anticipated what would soon shatter the carefully constructed calm. Around 10:30 p.m., the party began to thin as guests departed one by one. Nicholas retreated to his private study, a space few had entered. Mark followed discreetly, his instincts telling him something was off. What happened in those final moments would forever change the course of their lives. Investigators pieced together the timeline through eyewitness accounts and security camera footage, though crucial moments remained unrecorded due to a sudden power outage. Just before the blackout, Mark was seen entering the study alone. Minutes later, a loud crash echoed through the hallways. Neighbors reported hearing a scream shortly after the lights went out, but by the time the backup generators kicked in, the study was empty. When the authorities arrived, the scene was chilling. Nicholas Vance was gone, his body dismembered, and the remains discovered days later inside Mark's car. The brutality stunned the community and baffled investigators. Questions swirled. How could Mark, the trusted bodyguard, be connected to such horror? Was this a premeditated act or had something spiraled out of control? Interviews with guests revealed little. Most claimed ignorance, unwilling to speculate on what they hadn't witnessed. But one recurring detail emerged. Nicholas and Mark had been arguing earlier that evening, their conversation sharp and tense. The cause of their dispute remained unclear, though whispers pointed to financial troubles and betrayals. Some suggested Nicholas had uncovered secrets Mark desperately wanted to keep hidden. The blackout itself became a focal point of suspicion. Was it a planned maneuver to cover up the crime, or simply an unfortunate coincidence? As the investigation intensified, Mark vanished. His disappearance only added fuel to the fire, casting doubt on his innocence. Surveillance footage outside the city showed his car speeding away, erratic and frantic. Where was he headed and why? The dark secret Mark carried was no longer hidden. The night of the tragedy held answers, but they came at a cost, one that would unravel a powerful empire and expose the fragile line between loyalty and betrayal. The city awoke to shocking headlines. The Millionaire CEO's dismembered remains discovered in his bodyguard's car sent ripples through every corner of society. News outlets scrambled to uncover every detail, while the police launched a full-scale manhunt for Mark Ellis, the man now labeled suspect number 1. Detective Carla Mendoza took charge of the case. Known for her sharp mind and relentless pursuit of justice, she immediately sensed that this case was more than a simple act of violence. The layers of deceit and hidden motives demanded a careful, deliberate approach. Mark's disappearance was the first puzzle piece. No family, no known close friends. He was a ghost in many ways, living quietly in the background of Nicholas Vance's high-profile world. Yet the evidence was damning. His fingerprints were on the weapon believed to have been used, and his car was the grim vessel of the crime. Detective Mendoza started retracing Mark's last movements. She interviewed colleagues, acquaintances, and even strangers who might have seen him during his flight. But Mark seemed to have vanished into thin air, leaving behind only the chilling proof of the crime. Inside the Vance estate, the atmosphere was one of tense silence. The staff had been questioned extensively, but many clammed up, fearing repercussions or perhaps loyalty to their fallen employer. Only one person, an assistant named Rachel Hart, showed signs of nervousness and inconsistency in her statements. Rachel's relationship with Nicholas was complicated. She admired his ambition but feared his temper. Through discreet inquiries, Mendoza uncovered that Rachel and Mark often crossed paths in moments charged with tension. Rumors of arguments and secret meetings between them painted a picture of a tangled web behind closed doors. Meanwhile, the media frenzy grew. Social media exploded with theories and accusations, turning the case into a spectacle. The public demanded answers, but the truth remained elusive. To add to the complexity, forensic experts discovered traces of a rare poison in Nicholas's system, something that could have incapacitated him before the brutal attack. This finding hinted at a carefully planned scheme rather than a crime of passion. As Mendoza dug deeper, she found financial irregularities in the Vance company's accounts. Large sums had been siphoned off to unknown accounts, possibly connected to Mark or other insiders. Was the motive money? Revenge? Or a desperate attempt to cover up something far worse? Amidst the mounting pressure, a tip-off brought Mendoza to a remote cabin on the outskirts of the city. There, hidden among discarded belongings, she found a journal belonging to Mark. The pages revealed a man tormented by secrets, debts, and threats, not the cold-blooded killer everyone assumed him to be. The journal hinted at a conspiracy involving not just Mark and Nicholas but a larger circle of betrayal. It spoke of blackmail, manipulation, and a desperate fight to protect someone's life. As the hunt for Mark intensified, Detective Mendoza knew the clock was ticking. Each lead had to be followed, each lie uncovered. The truth was buried deep beneath layers of deception, and only relentless pursuit could bring justice to the Millionaire CO and expose the Bodyguard's dark secret. Detective Mendoza knew this case was far from straightforward. The deeper she delved, the more tangled the threads became. The Vance empire, a symbol of wealth and influence, concealed fractures that no one outside its walls had seen. The journal entries painted Mark Ellis as a man pushed to extremes. He wrote of whispered threats from shadowy figures demanding loyalty and silence. The money disappearing from company accounts wasn't just for personal gain, it was ransom, bribe, or payment for silence. At the heart of the mystery was a woman named Veronica Lane, a former executive who had been abruptly removed from the company. Veronica's exit had been quiet publicly, but behind closed doors, it was anything but peaceful. Mendoza found that Veronica had been investigating discrepancies in the company's finances before her dismissal. Veronica agreed to meet with Mendoza under strict conditions. She spoke carefully, revealing that Nicholas Vance's empire was crumbling beneath layers of corruption and dangerous alliances. She hinted that Mark was not acting alone, that the Bodyguard had become a pawn in a larger game of greed and betrayal. As Mendoza cross-checked Veronica's claims, another revelation came to light. Nicholas's marriage, once seen as the golden alliance of two powerful families, was anything but perfect. His wife, Evelyn, was rumored to be involved in affairs that could jeopardize the entire family's standing. Could Evelyn have played a part in Nicholas's death? Had jealousy or revenge driven her to orchestrate events from the shadows? Mendoza was cautious. Motives in this case were complex and appearances deceived. Adding another layer, Rachel Hart's behavior grew more suspicious. She had attempted to delete sensitive emails from her work account. When questioned, she claimed it was a mistake, but Mendoza sensed fear and desperation in her eyes. The financial trail led Mendoza to offshore accounts and shell companies, typical hiding places for illicit funds. The money flowed like dark water, connecting people who preferred to stay hidden. Through painstaking efforts, Mendoza uncovered messages between Mark and an unknown correspondent. The cryptic text suggested blackmail and threats, with Mark desperately trying to negotiate for his family's safety. With every piece of evidence, the picture grew darker. The Bodyguard wasn't just a murderer. He was trapped in a web of manipulation, struggling to protect those he loved while fighting a losing battle against forces beyond his control. But time was running out. The media frenzy had escalated into a wildfire of accusations and misinformation. Mendoza had to cut through the noise and bring clarity to a story drowning in shadows. The hunt for Mark Ellis intensified. Surveillance footage from a gas station on the city's edge showed a man resembling Mark purchasing supplies, enough to suggest he was planning to disappear. Mendoza felt the weight of the case bearing down on her. Every decision, every question raised more uncertainties. Was Mark the villain or a victim? Could the truth be uncovered before it slipped away forever? As night fell, Mendoza stared at the photos of Nicholas, Mark, Rachel, and Evelyn pinned to the board in her office. Each face told a story, but the truth remained locked behind a veil of lies. One thing was clear: this was no ordinary crime. It was a battle for power, survival, and redemption. Detective Mendoza's investigation reached a critical juncture. The evidence was mounting, but the people involved were closing ranks, their secrets tightly guarded. The tension in the Vance household was palpable, though no one spoke openly about the storm brewing beneath the surface. Mendoza scheduled a series of interviews, starting with Evelyn Vance. The once poised and elegant woman now appeared strained, her eyes revealing the weight of unspoken fears. Evelyn denied any involvement in her husband's disappearance, claiming ignorance of the business turmoil. Yet, subtle slips hinted at deeper knowledge. "Were you aware of Mark Ellis's role beyond being your bodyguard?" Mendoza asked, watching Evelyn carefully. Evelyn hesitated. "Mark was loyal, yes, but there were things I couldn't understand. Nicholas was distant in recent months. I thought it was just stress from the business." Mendoza pressed on, noting Evelyn's careful choice of words. She seemed to be protecting someone, or something. Next, Mendoza met with Rachel Hart. The young assistant was visibly nervous, her hands trembling as she sipped water. Under calm but firm questioning, Rachel finally broke. "There were threats," she confessed. "Anonymous messages, warnings to keep quiet. I never thought it would come to this." Rachel revealed that Mark had confided in her about growing pressure from unknown parties. He feared for his family's safety but was determined to protect Nicholas Vance. Meanwhile, Veronica Lane's information became pivotal. She uncovered evidence of a secret meeting between Mark and an influential business rival, Victor Kane. Kane's motives were suspect. His empire was crumbling and Nicholas Vance stood in his way. Mendoza obtained surveillance footage showing Mark and Kane in a heated exchange days before the murder. The bodyguard seemed desperate, but his words were unintelligible. In a breakthrough, forensic experts found traces of a rare poison on Nicholas's clothing. It suggested a slow, calculated method to incapacitate him before the final act of violence. This was no crime of passion, it was planned. The pressure mounted as Mendoza confronted Mark Ellis's family. His wife, Anna, was determined but broken, revealing that Mark had been acting erratically, haunted by threats and betrayal. Their children lived in fear, unsure of the truth behind their father's sudden disappearance. With growing urgency, Mendoza coordinated a sting operation to draw Mark out of hiding. Using confidential sources, she leaked false information about new evidence that could exonerate him. The trap worked. Mark surfaced, injured but alive, ready to tell his story. His confession was chilling. Manipulated, betrayed, and fighting to protect those he loved, Mark had been forced into desperate measures. The bodyguard's dark secret was not murder for greed or revenge, but a last stand against a collapsing empire. Mark Ellis's face was bruised, his hands trembling as he sat across from Detective Mendoza in the dimly lit interrogation room. The weight of the past weeks had worn him down, but his eyes held a fierce determination. He was ready to expose everything, the truth behind the dismembered remains, the secrets he had guarded, and the twisted chain of events that had led to the nightmare. "I never wanted it to end like this," Mark began, voice low but steady. "Nicholas was more than just a boss. He was a friend, someone I believed in." Mark recounted the increasing pressure he faced. The corporate war surrounding Vance Industries was ruthless. Competitors were relentless, and the stakes had escalated far beyond boardroom negotiations. Mark was caught in a web of deceit and danger he couldn't escape. According to Mark, the night of the incident was meant to be a turning point. Nicholas had uncovered a mole within his closest circle, a betrayal that threatened everything they had built. Mark's job was to protect Nicholas, but the betrayal came from someone no one expected. "I was told to silence him," Mark said, voice breaking. "Not because of money, but because his secrets could destroy powerful lives." Mark confessed to confronting the mole, a trusted executive named Richard Mallory. The confrontation turned violent, and in the chaos, Nicholas was attacked. Mark tried to intervene, but it was too late. The damage was done. Desperate to cover the truth and protect Nicholas's family, Mark made a difficult choice. He dismembered the body to prevent the discovery of incriminating evidence that could endanger innocent lives. It was a dark secret he vowed never to reveal. The detective's mind raced as she pieced together Mark's confession. It was a story of loyalty, sacrifice, and the blurred lines between right and wrong. Mendoza pressed on, asking about the anonymous threats, the poison, and the involvement of Victor Kane. Mark explained that Kane had orchestrated the betrayal, aiming to take control of Vance Industries by any means necessary. The poison was intended for Nicholas, but the plan had failed, forcing Mark into desperate actions. "I was a pawn in a dangerous game," Mark admitted. "But I wanted to protect those I cared about." With the confession, the pieces started to fall into place. The bodyguard's dark secret was no longer a mystery but a testament to the twisted nature of power, loyalty, and survival. Detective Mendoza's investigation had uncovered the layers of deception surrounding Nicholas Vance's murder, but the final piece was the man pulling the strings, Victor Kane. A figure known for his ruthless business tactics, Kane was the mastermind behind the chaos that had engulfed Vance Industries. The lead-up to the confrontation was tense. Kane's empire was vast, and the influence he wielded could derail the investigation at any moment. Mendoza coordinated with federal agents, knowing that bringing Kane to justice would require meticulous planning. They traced financial transactions, intercepted communications, and gathered testimonies from those who had suffered under Kane's reign. Every detail pointed to a single goal: to seize control by eliminating Nicholas Vance. The breakthrough came when a former associate of Kane agreed to cooperate, revealing critical information about the poison plot and the orders to eliminate Vance. The evidence was damning. In a carefully orchestrated operation, Mendoza and her team arrested Kane at a private estate far from the city's prying eyes. The man who once controlled boardrooms and backroom deals was now facing charges of conspiracy to commit murder, corporate espionage, and obstruction of justice. During the interrogation, Kane remained defiant, attempting to justify his actions as necessary for survival in a cutthroat industry. But the truth was clear. His ambition had cost a man his life and nearly destroyed a company built on trust and integrity. The trial that followed became a media spectacle, shedding light on the dark side of corporate power struggles. Witnesses testified about Kane's manipulations, the threats against Nicholas Vance, and the toxic environment he fostered. Mark Ellis's testimony was pivotal. His confession and cooperation helped expose the full extent of Kane's plans, bringing closure to a story that had captivated a nation. In the courtroom, the final verdict echoed the determination of justice prevailing. Victor Kane was convicted on multiple counts, sentenced to decades behind bars. The verdict sent a powerful message: no one was above the law. As the case closed, Detective Mendoza reflected on the journey. The shadows surrounding Nicholas Vance's death had been lifted, revealing not just a crime, but the human stories of loyalty, betrayal, and the price of ambition. The verdict against Victor Kane brought relief to many, but the ripple effects of the tragedy were felt long after the courtroom drama ended. Vance Industries struggled to regain stability, but Nicholas Vance's absence left a void not just in leadership, but in the company culture he had cultivated. Julia Matthews, Nicholas's widow, emerged as an unexpected pillar of strength. Despite her grief, she took on the challenge of steering the company through turbulent waters. Her focus was on transparency and restoring trust with employees, clients, and the community. Through her efforts, Vance Industries slowly began to heal. Mark Ellis faced his own path to redemption. His cooperation with authorities came at a personal cost. He had lost friends and reputation, but it allowed him to rebuild his life away from the shadows of crime. In the end, his courage to speak out served as a reminder that even those caught in webs of wrongdoing can choose a better path. Detective Mendoza's career was forever marked by the case. It reinforced her belief that justice demands persistence, empathy, and unwavering integrity. She continued to champion victims whose voices often went unheard, knowing that behind every case was a story that mattered. The story of Nicholas Vance, Victor Kane, and Mark Ellis serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and misplaced loyalty. It highlights how power can corrupt and how true strength lies in honesty and accountability. For viewers, the takeaway is clear: trust must be earned and protected. Betrayal carries heavy consequences, and even in darkness there is a chance for redemption. As I share this story, it's a call to remain vigilant, to question appearances, and to understand that behind every headline is a complex human experience, full of lessons worth learning. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps our channel grow and brings more gripping true crime stories your way. Have you ever encountered someone who seemed trustworthy but turned out to have a hidden side? Share your experience in the comments below. Your stories create a community where we can learn from each other's lessons. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new episode from my channel. We dive deep into true crime tales from around the world, all dramatized for your intrigue and insight. Finally, if you found this story compelling, share it with a friend who loves mysteries and crime stories. The more we share, the stronger our community becomes. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay safe, and remember, every story has more than meets the eye.